Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Causton.
Hi, I'm Christy Pretti-Frontczak, and Julie and I are jumping on today to tell you a little bit about who we are, where we've been, and how we're going to guide you through this work together. So we came up with a few questions to ask one another and talk through so you get a better sense of who we are and what we're doing in this world. So, Julie, you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So, Christy, I'm going to start by asking you the first question. And the
Okay.
question is tell me about one of your best days ever and how it kind of relates to the work you're doing or who you are.
I would say that kind of in a lump sum was like many days in my childhood. And so one of the things when I was really young, I have a memory. So I don't have a memory today, but I have a memory from when I was young.
Yeah.
And every day I would wake up when I was 3 or 4, and my mom would say, "What do you want to do today, Christy?" And I would say, "I want to go to the lagoon," which was an amusement park outside of Salt Lake City in Utah. And when I think about that, I think like, why was that what I picked? And so it was this idea of just having fun and not worrying about, I don't know, comparison or who's better at something, like all the things that sort of bog me down now. So I like to harness that memory of that freedom and that excitement of what would be possible at an amusement park. I don't know if that really is who I am these days or who I like wish I was, you know?
Mm, yeah. No, what a cool connection. And just the way that being at an amusement park, there's so many possibilities,
I
especially
think
to a
so.
young mind, right? Just like,
Anything,
yeah.
anything could happen. There's no order, which is funny because in a little bit when we talk about my strengths, I love order and predictability and details. But
Right.
this part of me that maybe is a little bit lost loves that idea of possibilities. Okay,
Mm.
so
Cool.
yeah, so it's I think I bring that. I think you help bring that out in me. So we'll get to that too. So how about
Okay.
you? Julie? What was a best day or type of day for you, and how is that kind of influencing your work today?
Okay, so I thought of a particular day, and it's really fresh in my mind because I just read my journal from third grade. Okay. And so school for me was very painful. I couldn't sit, didn't want to be there, couldn't believe that children were expected to be still and quiet for most of their lives. So it was the first day of summer vacation, third grade. We packed the car. So I'm in northern Minnesota. We packed the car. We go to northern Minnesota to a lake because that's what you do if you're a Minnesotan. And we go to Sansom's cabin. So it's friends of ours. We go to their cabin, and I spend the whole day building hotels for frogs. Okay. So digging and making these hotels for frogs. So I end up with this beautiful frog hotel structure. I've found a bunch of frogs. They're in the hotel. And then I realize they need a common area so they can get together. And so I create this in the middle commons area. And what was fascinating to me is the frogs would come into this commons area. So I just was like, then I have like three parts to this. So it's a long story. But the second part is that same night, my grandmother put so much bug spray on her shoes and stuff that her shoes stuck to her feet. They like melted. I'm sure there were some cheap little flip flops or something. So my dad is trying to pull them off my grandmother. Everyone is like cry laughing, almost just like dying laughing. And that is just a huge memory. So we've got frog hotels, we've got laughing so hard, and then at the nighttime, they taught me a card game, and the night times involved everybody sort of drinking, not me, but the adults, and
Yeah.
learning card games and stuff. And so I don't remember the name of the card game, but there was a thing they told me that I could do, which was called shooting the moon.
Totally. We did that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I figured out how to do it. I was really quiet about it, and I shot the moon. Well, that was the day that my whole family was like, Julie just shot the moon. Like they didn't think I even understood the rules to the game.
Mm.
So I'm going to tie all those pieces together. For me, the frog hotels and the common area are really about what I love to create, which is enjoyable, fun, interesting, adventurous instruction in school that does not look like sitting and getting. And spaces and places for people to come together, in this case, frogs, but for us. And then if you go to the laughter, I realize that school has to be like wildly fun. And then if you go to the shooting the moon, that really reminds me that was the moment where I really surprised my family. And it was kind of like don't underestimate anyone because they're always listening. And so that kind of comes to the pieces of the work I do. So when Christy and I get together, we create learning opportunities that are wildly fun, that really presume competence of all learners, and that are really, really creative. And so that's kind of that day really leads to where we are today.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that you talked about having a third grade journal.
Yeah.
And so just a quick parallel.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So, like, I have always wanted to be a teacher, and at the same place, when I got older, I never wanted to be a teacher, which is a story in and of itself. But
Yeah.
as I was young, in the third grade, my teacher was Mrs. Sampy, and I had a spiral bound notebook. It was orange, and I would take notes about how she should teach differently. And so, like, even like, I am sure it was like, have longer recesses,
Yeah.
let me sit by my best friend instead of alphabetically, don't make me read out loud because I hate it,
Yeah.
don't put me on a yellow track because I know purple is a better reader than a yellow, even though I love to read. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sure that those weren't the things I wrote, like, it was about the best friend sitting next to. But it's funny that you had a journal and then I had a an evaluation of my teacher notebook in the third grade.
That speaks volumes, doesn't it? But
Does
also that you saw the possibility it could be better. Like you were realizing from the consumer, a
from the
student,
consumer.
it
This
could be
could be better
better.
if you didn't make me read out loud and shame me by doing spelling around the world. You remember that game?
Yes, I do. I was
Oh my
terrible at
God,
it.
I hated that. And I hate spelling to this day.
Yeah.
And I hate
Right.
reading out loud, as you know, to this
Yes, I
day.
do.
So it's
Yeah.
like interesting how so many of those young memories get sort of subdued, that inner self starts to become what people think should be our ought self. And then we're also very aware at a young age of what works for us as a learner. But people keep telling us, you're not that, you're not as good as your sibling. You couldn't possibly shoot the moon in third grade. You have to learn by sitting crisscross applesauce. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. These
Okay.
stories were
So,
fun. We knew the questions, but just so you know, we knew the questions, but we didn't know the stories. So that was really fun to learn that about you, Christy. I love it. Let's do our second question, and that is going to be how do we complement one another in our work together?
so let's I thought about this and I thought, okay, it's really interesting is like when Julie and I come to work to a task, it's so much fun because what she loves to do, I hate to do. And what I love to do, she often hates to do. And so we don't fight over the same things. So I thought I would list a few things I love to do and you can make a face like, oh my God, right? And then you do the same and then that will
Okay.
help us show. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So I love spreadsheets, details, organized lists,
Uh, I like organized
and
lists.
lots of steps to answer. What's the best order or best way to approach this? Julie's
When
having
you said details, I started to sweat, and I'm not joking. Details made me literally sweat, and spreadsheets made me just get so anxious.
okay, so what do you love?
Okay, good. So I love
Spreadsheet.
what'd you say?
I said, who doesn't love a good spreadsheet?
I mean, me, I do not love a spreadsheet. So I love blank canvases. I love open spaces. I love colorful markers. I love dreams of possibilities. I love vision boards. I love that kind of stuff. And when you said organized list, I do love an organized list too. So that's interesting. That's a little over. I love an organized list as long as someone else helps me make it. I don't
Yeah,
have the executive
exactly.
functioning skills to make an organized list, but you do, luckily.
And when Julie talks about a blank piece of paper, I automatically think somebody's going to expect me to be creative and draw something and or color it well or know what to put on it. And I would be like, can I make bulleted lists?
Yeah. Right. Right. So the beauty of our the juxtaposition of our two loves and dislikes and means that we work together in ways that we haven't ever been able to work before because I can dream of something and Christy's like, let me throw it in a spreadsheet. And then she takes that and then we keep going. And what it ends up to be are these fabulous classes for folks and fabulous opportunities for people to really be able to take education to next levels.
Because I think what we do for those who participate and attend and join us on these journeys is that where we do come together in terms of, I grabbed this from Grace Lee Boggs, but we're both solutionaries. We are we are connectors. We bring people together in ways that they've never thought were possible. And we find really practical solutions to really complex human right issues around the right to be included, the right to belong, the right to learn in a way that makes sense to you. And so I feel like even though our approaches sometimes are different, they complement, but that what brings us both together is that idea of being a solutionary and a connector. I don't know, what else did you put down that like is the overlap?
Well, I put that I'm in awe of your talents is something I wanted to say because I think in the past, I think being someone who's good at organizing and spreadsheets and things like that is not awesome to some people. But like to me, I could watch Christy work forever. I'm just like, oh, did you see how she did that? And she tabbed it and she made it all the same and da, da, da. Like that to me is just awe inspiring. And so the other piece of it is we're both in awe of each other's gifts, which I don't want to get too far down the road of co-teaching and all that other stuff, but really when we work with other people, we have to share what we love about the other person to really create the synergy of great work together.
And so to tie this one up before we go to our third question, when I was talking about like going to the lagoon and before I really thought about comparison or thought about I might do it wrong or thought about who's better, that young spirit. I think that's what Julie, I don't think, I know that's what Julie brings out in me. Like she encourages me to dream again. She encourages me to find possibility, to see where there is hope, to see just the endless ideas that are available instead of like I come sometimes from a scarcity perspective or a fear is my tradition, which developed over time. And so Julie sort of unleashed that fun in me, and I'm getting a little bit better. I still not sure I'm going to get up and sing, but I am a performer at heart. Like when I was young, I would do anything make believe. I would sing, I would dance, I would be superheroes, and Julie does that to this day, and it makes me cringe, and I'll be like, I'll raise my hand, but she'll like do a backflip. And so she's really inviting that what I think is really my true self to come back.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, our third question. So I don't know how to say it, but essentially a biggest goal or biggest achievement of yours that you would want to talk about.
Yeah, so this one also relates to like our work and the services, the events, the products, the downloads, the Facebook lives, whatever Julie and I create. So in 2013, I was on sabbatical. So I was a full professor with tenure, and I say that because when people know that kind of those words, it means a trajectory. It means you'll either become a dean or a provost, or you'll die in your office and somebody will clean it out that's junior faculty. Like that's
Uh,
no offense to my colleagues in higher ed, but that's kind of like there's hierarchies and there's a career lattice. And when you're a full professor with tenure, there's only a couple of avenues to go. You either stay that path and continue to craft your vocation, or you move into administration. And so I was on sabbatical and I decided that maybe I wanted to leave academia, which was shocking because that was all I ever knew. And I thought, I don't have, my mom always said, take typing and 10 key. I'm old. So that's what she wanted us to learn in high school. And I was like, who does a 10 key? And if people don't know what that is, you can Google it. And so in 2013, I said to my husband, I think I'm not going to go back. Or if I do, maybe I'll only go back for 10 years. Keep in mind, I'd been there 16. So going back for 10 didn't seem that long. And he's like, well, that's a good idea because, you make the money and you have health insurance and retirement, right, Julie? Because
right.
that's
Yeah.
what you get. And then, like, I swear, a day later, I said, maybe I'll go back for 5. And Mike was like, 5's doable. We can plan, we can save. Day later, maybe an hour, I said, I'll go back for a year because if you don't go back, you have to pay back your sabbatical. And then on May 31st of 2013, I walked into my dean's office and I said, I'm leaving. And so for me, I didn't know it at the time, but that was me starting to achieve my biggest goal. But I wouldn't say it was until 2020 of all years that I started to live that goal, which was to be not just a thought leader, but to be in service of those that I care about most, which are educators.
Mhm.
And Julie has really helped me do that. So, not just survive as an entrepreneur, but really to begin to thrive and have. There's this poem, and it's about this vase. And the vase is in a museum, but all it wants to do is be in your house and be of use. And I feel like my goal is just emerging that I really feel like I'm of use. Does that make
Mm.
sense? To be of service to educators. So that's a
It not
long
only
story to
Yeah.
say, yeah.
It not only makes sense, but it's the kind of story that gives you the chills. It's so beautiful to think about what it means to be of service, right?
Right.
To be of service to humans that are doing this incredibly important work in the world. I mean,
Yeah, I
nothing
had
makes
this
me
profile
happier.
once that said, you don't really want to be the person to do the change. You just want to help support people to make the decisions to be the change. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's true. Like
Yeah.
I'm not best serving the world in the trenches, but I can support all those amazing humans that are doing that hard work every day. So yeah, so that my goal is kind of just continuing to evolve. Okay, so what did you come up with?
Well, I thought of 3 things that I'm trying to decide. So I'm gonna tell you my 3 things and then I'll decide on the spot.
Okay, that's good.
I thought about my kids. That's my biggest accomplishment, having children and what they've done for me. And I think maybe I'll just talk about that. What they've done for me is make me a softer person, a person who's constantly thinking every day, what if that was my child? What if that was my child? What if that was my child? They teach me a lot. And now that they're teenagers, they are very socially minded, really always thinking about equity and thinking about all kinds of things. And so they even push my thinking a lot. And so I was gonna say my kids, I was also gonna say getting my doctorate while pregnant, and then I was gonna say this business, which
while
it's
while
kinda like
raising 2 humans. I
while
mean, it's
raising
really
2
cool.
humans. Yeah, they are connected. I didn't think about that. And I also added in small print, which tells me a little bit about the concept, coming out. So
Mhm.
marrying a woman, deciding that I was gay, all that kind of stuff has all been part of this journey, which says, hey, guess what? We just show up as our whole selves. And when you just show up as your whole self, your good and bad and all the pieces, um, and all the confusing, complex pieces, what you do is finally touch hearts. And I want to talk about the coming out, and then that's what I want to talk about that as my last piece, which is I might be presenting in a auditorium with 3,000 people. I think I do this incredible presentation about inclusion. I think I nailed it. I'm just like, that was
You did
funny and
the
people were
line.
crying.
Yeah.
Yeah, just boom, right? Then the line at the end, when it's time to go and people are leaving, but there's a line of people who want to ask questions. Usually 8 out of 10 people say, thank you for sharing about your wife.
Mm.
I just got married to a woman and I don't talk about it at school. Thank you for putting a picture of your family up because that meant a lot to me. When you put that up, it made me feel really safe, right?
Yeah.
All this stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay. That is what really resonates with people because people, when they show up and are their real selves, that's when people can finally connect with you.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the work is I do a lot of work with humans about how do you show up as your whole self and how do you really connect with those either small humans or big humans that you teach and serve.
So there you go. That's a little
Awesome.
bit or a lot of it or too much of it
Probably
about
way too much.
hanging out with us and doing this work together. Again, as Julie said, whether you're serving tiny humans or humans that have been 25 more than once, we're grateful to be on this journey, both together and then certainly with you. So looking forward to it.
Can't wait. Thanks.